as we reflect on our relationship to this land during the current crisis, and as we look back on the museum's long history, I also want to take a moment to acknowledge that the land on which the museum was founded and the lands that now burn in our midst are the unceded territory of the Waswa-speaking people who stewarded these lands for millennia. To this day, Indigenous stewards from the Amamutsan tribal band care for our region, many of whom were evacuated from Año Nuevo State Park this week, where they were doing fuel reduction work, and we will look to them for guidance in the aftermath of this current tragedy. Now, tonight, before we share with you what the museum has been up to and our plans for the future, we're going to look back on our long past and highlight some of our most notable memories and the important people who have helped us along the way. We're going to hear from some friends of ours who have sent in kind remarks in celebration of this beloved institution. So first, we are going to hear from our board president, J.M. Brown, and longtime supporter, Julie Packard.
Hi, I'm J.M. Brown, President of the Board of Directors of the Santa Cruz Museum of Natural History and Chair of the City of Santa Cruz Parks and Recreation Commission. I'm sitting here in beautiful Terrell Park, the home of the museum, which is celebrating its 115th birthday today. I'm so excited to be part of the museum family, and even though we can't have our doors open right now, we are still providing so many wonderful resources to the community, and I'm so proud of the work of our staff and our board and our wonderful neighbors here in beautiful Seabright. Thank you so much for all your support.
Hey friends at the Santa Cruz Museum of Natural History, I want to offer a big congratulations and thanks on 115 years. That is great news. Thank you all so much. So, I'm a native Californian in love with California nature. We've got the best nature, right? We all know it. And it's so important to have a place where kids and families can convene and learn about nature. And even more important, learn about the people and the cultures that came before us. Looking to the future, I hope that the museum continues to thrive stronger than ever, and that we can continue to be a convening place where people can build community, build understanding, and build a thriving, sustainable community for the future for all of us. Again, big congratulations.
So we really love hearing from all of you, from our friends, community members, volunteers, partners, and we've missed having you around on a daily basis. But we would like to hear from you in the chat now as well. So maybe we can get our history tour kick-started with a little reminiscing. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to invite you all to again go to the chat and make sure that who you're sending your message to is all panelists and attendees, so everyone here can reminisce together. And please share an early memory you have from the museum. You can take your time thinking about it too, but let's just look back on this beloved institution and all of the great things that we've done here together. And without further ado, we are also going to jump into learning about our history. And who would we be if we did not start that history tour by bringing up the story of our founder? For over a century, the museum has inspired curiosity and guided our community in deepening their understanding of the natural world. And we do that with Laura Hecox in mind. A young girl who grew up tumbling over the rocks of Westcliff Drive, looking for shells and fossils and studying them so closely that she amassed her own little natural history museum collection, a story familiar to so many of us who grew up as collectors. I know I sure did. Laura was born in 1854 after her father moved their family to Santa Cruz from Illinois. In 1869, Adna was appointed keeper of the original Santa Cruz Lighthouse, where he and his family took up residence. Could you imagine getting to live in a lighthouse? Young Laura soon began collecting seashells, minerals, fossils, artifacts, and other specimens and curios, turning parts of the lighthouse into a private nature museum. In 1883, her father Adna died, and Laura was appointed lighthouse keeper by the federal government. She stayed at the post for 33 years. On weekends, she gave public tours of the lighthouse, including her personal natural history museum. And this collection served as the foundation of the City of Santa Cruz's first museum, which opened to the public on August 21st, 1905. That's right, this day, 115 years ago, in the basement of the new library. Since then, we have called several buildings home, which you can learn about in this month's Collections Close-Up blog. Every month, our collections manager, Kathleen Aston, writes really interesting articles about aspects of our collections. And this month, we've explored the various homes that the museum has. So I definitely recommend checking that out after this program. So our current home, I'm skipping ahead a little, so you're gonna have to go back and look at that blog to find out where we were in between, but our current home was built to be a Carnegie Library in 1916, much like our original home that was also a Carnegie Library. And we moved into this building in 1954 and have been there ever since. Though I should note we've added a few square feet since then. Our mission is to connect people with nature and science to inspire stewardship of the natural world. And one of the ways that we do that is through our collections and our exhibits. And now I feel like probably a lot of you have memories of certain collections items. There are probably objects that just like really speak to your heart. And one of those objects that we get asked about all the time, the most, is the ribbon fish, which is on the wall here. And it's not currently on display, but you can see that it's been around for quite some time. Here's the announcement marking the opening of our current location. And since then, that actual specimen was transferred to another institution so they could use it for research, and we had a cast of this on display for some time. We still have the cast, but we just don't have it on display right now. So I'm curious if you have certain objects that you remember from the museum from years past that you haven't seen in a while. Let us know what they are in the chat. I'd be really curious to hear about them. And on that note, also, just noting like why certain objects like that ribbon fish cast aren't currently on display when they were, and they're so, you know, that one's so beloved and so many of our collections objects are. Well, the thing is that we have a lot of stories to tell. So the bulk of our collections are actually not on display. So we do love rotating out exhibits so that our community can continue to learn new things from our physical space. And we're gonna get into some highlights of our rotating exhibits in a second. But before we do, I'd love to hear from you also in the chat. What are your favorite exhibits that you've seen at the museum? If you've been coming for a lot of years, you've probably come to a lot of opening receptions for a lot of different museums, or a lot of different exhibits at the museum. I know for me, you know, if I'm thinking about our permanent exhibits, I really love geology. I love our brand new, not brand new, I guess, brand new in the grand scheme of things, our Santa Cruz Naturalist exhibit with our updated tide pool. I love that one. I see that someone loves the bees. Gotta love the bees. My grandfather, every time I see him, he asks me how the bees are doing. But we've also had special exhibits come through. So I'm curious if you guys want to share what some of your favorite special exhibits are. And maybe one of the ones that comes to mind is one of the 30 plus years of science illustration exhibits that the museum has had, including the Art of Nature and its predecessor, Illustrating Nature. And I see Spencer is a fan of Art of Nature every year. Me too. And you know, this year we were preparing for our annual Art of Nature exhibit, and then we closed our doors. And so we rallied and adapted and were able to put it up as a virtual exhibit, which was kind of one of our first forays into adapting to this new way, and not the last, that is for sure. Another one of our temporary exhibits that's been on my mind today is the Auto Tree exhibit. This we showed about 5 years ago when I first started at the museum. And it's a reminder to me of what the role of a museum is. We gather important stories and we share them with our community to build understanding and enthusiasm for the natural world. And that being a natural world that is ever changing. And so, you know, when we were telling the story of Big Basin 5 years ago, that's a different story than we would probably be telling next year. or today, unfortunately. But that's the nature of what our museum does, is we connect people with these natural spaces as they are today, as they were, and as they could be. Getting back to our special exhibits, oh, who could forget dinosaurs at the beach? This is a partnership with the Seaside Company to bring a life-size replica dinosaur exhibit to the boardwalk in 1994. And oh, I am so sad that I missed this one. If you were there, please say in the chat what it was like, because that just seems like a wonderful partnership idea to connect the Natural History Museum with our local amusement park. Also, following the year that Jurassic Park came out in theaters. So good, so wonderful. Just love it, all of the different stories of where the museum has been over the years. And this exhibit was the brainchild of longtime museum curator Charles Prentice, who I'm sure a lot of you know. Now, in 1969, Charles Prentice was hired as curator of the museum. He came to the job with a college background in both biology and art, and this is actually a self-portrait that he's made of himself that he has on his website. He's still a practicing artist in town. During his 29 years at the museum, programs, staff, collections, and exhibits continued to improve and expand. In the 1970s, annual exhibits such as the Fungus Fair and Spring Wildflower Show were inaugurated, and the first of many special exhibits held. Thanks to hundreds of donations during this period, the museum's priceless collection of specimens and artifacts grew to over 16,000 items. And a part of his legacy, the Fungus Fair is one of the most beloved programs and partnerships of our history. The first event was held at the museum in 1974, and though the fair found a new, slightly larger home at Loudon Nelson in the 1990s, we still enjoy a rich partnership with the Fungus Federation of Santa Cruz, who just this year partnered with us on our exhibit, Mushrooms, Keys to the Kingdom Fungi, including a return of a fungus fair of sorts. This is an image from our First Friday event in February of this year, where the Fungus Federation helped put on a little mini fungus fair. They went out that day and the days prior and just foraged the Santa Cruz Mountains and found this many mushrooms and brought them to the museum. We also had examples of objects that have been dyed with mushrooms. We had a lichen expert who's also a museum volunteer who works with our exhibits. We also had a business partner, Far West Fungi, who opened up a shop this year in Santa Cruz, who are selling spawning blocks. So that was a wonderful partnership, and we really love opportunities to connect with our community in these surprising ways. Another partnership that has been instrumental for the museum is that with the Amity Tribal Band. In 2018, we received a grant from Cal Humanities to partner with the tribe on a series of events. The tribe and their chairman, Valentin Lopez, have also collaborated with us on teacher workshops, the rewrite of our school program that explores Indigenous culture in Santa Cruz, and the recent rewrite of our exhibit labels in our Native Peoples exhibit. Museums are purveyors of culture and meeting places for communities to have dialogue about the issues that face us, to learn from each other, and to express ourselves. We learn from our past at museums, and we also form who we are and who we will become. One of the most important ways that we do that is through our school programs. Our docent program began in the 1980s, and over the years, countless volunteers have helped connect Santa Cruz County students with their local habitats through field trips to places like Neary Lagoon, Pogonip, the Sandhills of Henry Cowell. We've also connected them to their history through our cultural programs and to our animal neighbors, which is actually the name of our most recently developed school program. We have a large education department who works tirelessly on making sure that we are providing the best environmental education that we can to our community. And of course, one of the favorite activities of the students who visit the museum is climbing on our beloved gray whale sculpture, which is another partnership success story. And I should also note that children are not the only ones who enjoy climbing on that whale. I myself just did it maybe 2 weeks ago. It never gets old. So a little about the whale. In 1982, in partnership with the City of Santa Cruz, the Museum Association, our then nonprofit arm raised money to install a life-sized gray whale model made of redwood slats and concrete. The Museum Association helps steward us through times of change and times of crisis, including in 2009, when the financial recession resulted in the city of Santa Cruz pulling their funding of the museum, at which point we began work on becoming a fully independent nonprofit organization, which we are today. And on that note, I think it's about time that we bring back Felicia to chat with us about recent events at the museum. But first, before we do, let's hear from some fellow museum comrades from other local institutions. We have a number of museums who we share this community with, and we're grateful to have a few of those voices heard. So here's some of our fellow museum friends.
Hi, it's Marla from the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History. The Ma says happy 115th birthday to the Santa Cruz Museum of Natural History. We have a long history together. I think we've collaborated on a few things together, and here's to 115 more years of collaboration, bringing art, history, natural history, and culture to Santa Cruz County.
I want to talk to you today about the Santa Cruz Museum of Natural History. We call it the Whale Museum because there's a big whale out in front. The museum is a must visit. It has a great collection of archaeological and Native American artifacts. It's interesting and informative. There is also a satellite museum out at Lighthouse Point. It's called the Santa Cruz Surfing Museum, another must-see. On display are old surfboards, photographs, stories, telling of the rich and historical Santa Cruz surfing culture. Santa Cruz is the first place anyone surfed on the whole west coast of North America. It's documented. In 1885, 3 Hawaiian princes surfed Santa Rosa Point using 17 feet long solid redwood surfboards built from our trees in the mountains here, 6 inches thick and 240 pounds each. Come see our museums.
Always grateful to hear from people like Bob and Marla. So without further ado, Felicia.
All right, thank you. I'm glad to be here to take a closer look at our more recent history that has set the stage for what comes next. As we've seen, the museum has a long legacy in our community, and that was just the highlight reel. From our founding story and every step along the way, all of that has shaped us and prepared us for this moment. Countless community members have made their mark on this institution, and I'm humbled to carry on this legacy. A little over 2 years ago, I worked with my predecessor to create an ambitious strategic plan that would launch a new era for the museum as a vibrant community center for learning about and connecting to nature. During this process, we affirmed our core values, seen here, to ensure that we were leveraging our strengths to serve the community. That plan also included a seemingly small but significant update to our mission. We added science along with nature as central to our role, to connect people with nature and science, to inspire stewardship of the natural world. In times like these, we are honored and trusted to be an institution, or honored to be a trusted institution that helps to make sense of the world around us. And we see that the need for public engagement, understanding, and trust of science is ever important. As a new director entering the pandemic crisis, centering decision-making around core values has been crucial and will continue to guide us into the future. Our values inform how we serve the community, and these guiding principles are a tool for decision-making and planning through the many crises that are here to navigate right now. Strong leadership by my predecessor and our dedicated board, plus tremendous public support, has put us in a pretty strong position with reserves and good practices to ensure longevity. We also have emergency plans that will ensure that the historic collections that make the museum will be preserved. As I mentioned, we evacuated some of our collections today. We're prepared to protect the collections that are the heart of the museum. We will be able to carry that 115-year legacy into the future. This moment has been challenging. It has challenged us to adapt and stretch and find new ways to accomplish our mission while serving emergent community needs, especially through supporting families and students who are learning at home. All of this is made possible by our wonderful staff, who are the heart of the museum and who bring life to the exhibits and collections. We are really proud to have maintained our team through the pandemic and to have their continued leadership and passion and silliness. They're here at a staff meeting celebrating bats. As we move forward, we will continue to work at building relationships, creating diverse community around a shared appreciation for nature and science. Now more than ever, we can see how science impacts our daily lives and how natural phenomenon can inspire us, but also dramatically impact our living world. Outdoor education and environmental literacy is not only for school-age students, but for everyone, because we are all part of the environment and we are all inextricably connected to the natural world. Our strength is in facilitating connection and welcoming all kinds of people to be our co-explorers, engaged in discourse and discovery. My vision for the future of the museum is that we remain a community center and an inclusive place for shared dialogue and exploration, whether in person or online, that promotes environmental literacy and engagement for those who live in and visit our beautiful region. There are going to be many people who help us achieve this future, including esteemed volunteers and naturalists. So, at this time, let's hear from a couple of those valued volunteers.
I'm Nancy Lenz, and I've been a volunteer here at the museum for, well, actually for 30 years. Volunteers are appreciated here at the museum because I was able to not only do things that I had already planned to do, but I was able to learn new things. And the garden is where the last 10 years I've learned to do so many things. And in appreciation, I was given the Naturalist Award, the Laura Hecox Naturalist Award, that has now been given to 4 people, but the first 2. The first one was Gary Griggs. He was head of the Marine Institute at UC Santa Cruz. The second one was Frank Perry, who had done so many exhibitions and put together the whale at the Marine Lab. And the third was a little old lady who was given the Naturalist Award after she had planted pampas grass in her first garden. So it was a very proud moment of my life. What the museum has let people do is not only volunteer, but not lick envelopes, but learn new things. And they've let people use their abilities and expand what they did in life. So thank you to the Santa Cruz Natural History Museum.
One of my fondest memories of the Santa Cruz Museum of Natural History goes back to the 1980s and 1990s when the museum used to host the annual wildflower shows. These were really a lot of fun and very educational. When you think about the hundreds of thousands of people who have visited the museum over the past century, its contribution to Santa Cruz has just been tremendous.
As you've seen, previous award winners, including Frank Perry, Nancy Lenz, Gary Griggs, and Megan Nikow, each promote a love of history, of natural history in very different ways. Our founding collections came from Laura Hecox, who we just learned about, who began this long tradition of sharing connection to nature with her community by welcoming people into her own home to view her vast collection. The Laura Hecox Naturalist Award honors those in our community who exemplify the museum's mission to connect people with nature in ways that help others to appreciate, understand, and protect the wonders of the natural world, just like Laura. They are now joined by Amity Sandage, the Environmental Literacy Coordinator for Santa Cruz County Office of Education. Amity is someone who has promoted connection to nature and made a tremendous impact on countless teachers, students, and families across the entire Monterey Bay and across the state. She has also been a huge influence on our own education staff, who I've invited to speak about their work with Amity.
Amity, you are the guiding light of environmental literacy across the Monterey Bay region. You bring teachers and other educators together in service of this critically important work of connecting our students and the broader community to their home places and giving them the tools that they need to interpret and understand this natural world that we all share. I can tell you a number of times I have walked into a gathering of educators and you have been there welcoming and greeting us, making us feel valued, and grounding us all in this shared community of practice. Amity, you're a good leader because you remind us what the work is for. You take the time to listen, and you bring compassion into every interaction that you have. Thank you for all that you do, and congratulations.
And I'd also just love to share a few words about Amity. I've worn multiple hats at the museum since I've been with the organization, both starting as a volunteer, but also when I first started as staff, serving our schools alongside people like Spencer as my primary role. And now my focus is more tuned towards our broader community. But regardless of where my work takes me at the museum, I look to Amity as an example of how to lead, how to connect with others, how to foster productive relationships, and how to facilitate dialogue with grace. She's not only a personal example, but she's also been just instrumental in putting together experiences for large groups of educators that I have personally and professionally benefited from. So Amity, thank you so much for doing so much to help foster a next generation of Laura Hecoxes in our community.
Thank you. I'm just trying to get myself.
And before, I think Felicia's also going to share just a few more words about you before we give you the mic, Amity.
I didn't want to be left out, Amity, because when I joined the museum, I was an education manager, and not only was I welcomed into the museum world, I was also welcomed into this huge community of outdoor educators and nonprofits, all working towards a shared vision of environmental literacy. And you are the glue that holds that network together and keeps us focused and productive and collaborative. And the list of responses from that listserv that we got today of everyone just absolutely adoring you and praising you because your leadership is unquestioned. You helped me to deepen my own understanding and connection with our educational community and offered us support as we rewrote and improved our decades-old museum programs. Amity, you lead with grace and compassion, and you model the best of teaching and being a guide that we all strive for. Your work has put the county and in fact the whole region on the forefront of environmental education, and your leadership has made quality nature and science connections possible for countless students. So it's a really great honor to acknowledge you as this year's Laura Hecox Naturalist. Take it away.
Thank you so much. I love the story of Laura Hecox and the founding of this museum, and I'm so honored to be in the company of the inspiring naturalists who came before me as recipients of this beautiful award. But the first thing I want to say is I want you all to know that the reality is I am here getting this award really because of the incredible partners that I have, the Santa Cruz Museum of Natural History and our other beloved community-based learning institutions that are essential to the work of creating an environmentally literate society. As the Environmental Literacy Coordinator of Santa Cruz County Office of Education, I see the uncertainty on people's faces when I say my title. It's certainly not the experience my colleagues get, who the math coordinator and the science coordinator. So I run into the question, what exactly is environmental literacy? It's not a concept that was taught when I was in school growing up. And it's something that our formal school system has really only relatively recently begun to tackle in a systemic way. And because of this, unfortunately, we're facing many of the challenges that are pressing upon us so tragically today. So Felicia asked me to share a bit about the work we're doing in our county to address this. And so I hope you'll indulge me here. The good news is public schools in California now have a blueprint for environmental literacy, which maps out all the areas of work we need to tackle to create a system where all students, regardless of their school setting and community resources, have opportunities to connect with nature as a part of their regular school program and gain the knowledge and skills to graduate as informed, empowered, environmentally literate young adults. And in the blueprint, they provide a definition that I wanted to share with everyone. It says, an environmentally literate person has the capacity to act individually and with others to support ecologically sound, economically prosperous, and equitable communities for present and future generations through lived experiences and education programs that include classroom-based lessons, experiential education, and outdoor learning. Students will become environmentally literate, developing the knowledge, skills, and understanding of environmental principles to analyze environmental issues and make informed decisions. So I don't know if you all caught that phrase in the middle, through experiential education and outdoor learning. We have an education blueprint that recognizes that our school system cannot achieve this work on its own solely in the classroom. We must partner with our community-based environmental educators to bring their unique expertise and inspiring programs to every student. And Santa Cruz Museum of Natural History has been one of those key partners for us. For the past 2+ years, the County Office of Education has been leading a county science initiative that is integrating environmental literacy into our school programs. And to support this systemic shift, we launched a Teacher Leadership Institute for Science and Environmental Literacy that included an innovation that's been one of the joys and most exciting and rewarding parts of my work. We began to bring our classroom teachers together with our community-based environmental educators to learn together about the new science standards, to share on equal footing so they could each benefit from their complementary expertise and learn from one another, and to collaborate on lessons that would fully integrate field-based learning with classroom curriculum. And after 2 years of this work, we now have teachers in every district in the county, almost every school site, and across K through 12, who have had this shared learning experience and collaboration with environmental education partners. They're now the teacher leaders that we will rely on to scale out this work to every site in the county and to every student in the county. That's the vision. And these relationships between teachers and environmental education partners have been so valuable and inspiring. I want to share just a few quotes from the year-end teacher surveys that teachers were asked to share about their experience collaborating with an environmental education partner. So they said, collaborating with our partners made the experience very rich with the expertise they have in their field. They helped align lessons with real-life experiences for students. It was amazing to have this community connection make it relevant to all our students. And our EE partner really helped us see that student work didn't need to look perfect to be valuable learning. Close observation, inquiry, discussion, journaling, and hands-on experience are key to science learning. They're enthusiastic and bring great energy and refresh my appreciation of nature and outdoor space and bring that to my classroom. It was wonderful to have them in our classroom and meet them out in the field. It was a very positive relationship that helped students learn more about the outside world and how what they do impacts others. And I could go on and on with quotes from over 170 teachers, teacher leaders from every corner of our county. And this is what keeps me inspired to build these relationships. And I'm excited to start building more relationships, this time between our environmental education partners and a new initiative, our Student Leadership and Engagement Initiative. We launched a program last year to bring together a few high school students from every high school in the county to bond over their love of nature and share their concerns for the environment and their ideas for action. They call themselves Youth for Environmental Action. And one of their ideas for taking action in the coming year is to interview environmental education partners about how youth can get involved with them and in the community. And they'll also be planning a summit in the late fall to bring together adult and youth in the county to share successes they're having in helping the environment and ideas for how they can work together across all ages and sectors toward a sustainable future. Having mentors and partners in the community for students will change their lives. I believe this with all my heart because I am living proof. When I was 17, I had no idea of what my career path would be. I loved reading, so I thought, I'll be an English major. But then I had a science class that took us to the LA River, from the headwaters all the way down into the cement channels in the urban flats. And we conducted water testing, we sampled macroinvertebrates, and we met with community-based organizations working to restore the watershed. And pretty quickly, I switched my major to environmental studies and anthropology. I left the classroom. Again, that was such an exciting experience to go study abroad in Nepal and worked with NGOs working on issues around the interdependence of human systems and environmental systems. And in my final years of college, I distinctly remember a museum visit to an exhibit on Buddhist religious art, about as esoteric a topic as you could imagine, that could have been made for the most boring hands-off exhibit imaginable. But instead, in addition to the religious paintings, they had videos of the political struggles in Tibet. They had rooms filled with everyday realia of Tibetan homes that helped me learn about how people's lives really were there. And visiting monks, working on creating a sacred sand mandala in a gallery where you could watch them work and talk with them while they worked. And I left there with a completely new idea of what museums could be and do. And I suddenly realized that all of my informal education experiences had been the most powerful and lasting aspects of my education. The classroom was essential, but everything outside it was equally important. And I ended up working in the museum field at first, committed to bridging the divide between the non-formal education and formal education institutions. And that's why this award gives me just so much personal pleasure. And I will treasure it as a symbol of the work that we're doing together to build the bridges in our community for all students to access the amazing natural and cultural resources that we have here in our home in Santa Cruz County. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you, Amity. And gosh, for all of you joining us in the chat, maybe you can share with us in congratulating Amity on receiving this award, and share, if you've had the privilege of meeting Amity or working with Amity, maybe share with us some of your thoughts on how she's helped you and helped others become more environmentally literate, and also just like understand what that term means, as we heard from you today, Amity. We still got a ways to go, but we're a lot farther along that road with your help. So So again, thank you so very much. And stewarding the youth of our community is all about the future. And with that in mind, I'd like to share one more video with you all, this time from our friend Rick Flores, who has partnered with the museum on a number of programs, as well as served as a consultant in our rewrite of our school programming about Indigenous cultures. And Rick is the director of horticulture at the UC Santa Cruz Arboretum, as well as a steward of the Amamutsin Relearning program there.
The museum is important for our Santa Cruz community because it gives people, a chance to create relationships with the natural world, which then in turn will likely make people, want to conserve and protect our natural places. My hope for the museum's next 115 years is for them to do good work, especially encouraging and promoting more people of color in environmental fields and within natural history so that they can become engaged participants in our nation's conservation and management fields of our natural world.
And I'd love to also hear from all of you joining us. We just heard from Rick his hopes for the museum's future, but also we want to hear from you as well. What do you want to see from the museum moving forward? Whether it's what you want to see from us this month, this year, once we reopen our doors, or 115 years from now, please let us know what your museum can do for you and for our community in the chat. And also we're going to share a survey in a follow-up email, which is another place where you can share your thoughts. I can also link to it here in the chat. So yeah, let's envision a brighter future with clearer skies together. And to close this out, I'm going to hand it back to Felicia.
Thank you. The museum has served the community through some historic times, like right now, and we look forward to the next 115 years of connecting people with nature and science to inspire stewardship of the natural world. All of the things that Amity was talking about are such points of pride, and they're so important to us. And the ethics that we bring to our school programs and to our partnership with the science, the science leaders, the teacher leaders, we extend that to how we approach our public education programs and everything we do at the museum. Because like I said, environmental literacy is not just for students or for young students. And the fact that we're able to spread this work across all corners of the county is very significant and important as we strive to be inclusive and bring new voices to the table and hear their stories and their connections to nature as we move forward. So thank you all for being part of this community, part of the ongoing conversations and collaborations. It's wonderful to see some familiar names in the chat and on the participant list. Many of our community partners are here today, and you make it all possible. The museum goes far beyond its collections and its walls because it lives in all of us and in everything that we're doing. Thank you to our members and our donors who make the stewardship of those historic collections, those public education programs, the support of schools, and yes, eventually the reopening of our doors all possible. Thank you so much. Be well and good night.